So this is financial math that we're going to start right now, and it's the intro of this chapter. So a lot of this, if you have your own finances that you are working with, a lot of this will already probably be familiar to you. So basic stuff about knowing your bank balance, knowing what you spend, keeping track of your spending, and don't buy an impulse. Those are all things that hopefully are common sense. Here's the first example, though. This is talking about how you can calculate credit card interest. So Cassidy has recently begun keeping her spending under control, but she still can't fully pay off her credit card. She maintains an average monthly balance of about $1,100, and her card charges a 24% annual interest rate, which it bills at a rate of 2% per month. How much is she spending on credit card interest per month and per year? So a couple things I want to break down for you before we talk about this is oftentimes credit cards will advertise their rates as annual interest rates. Annual means yearly. So if they charge you 24% yearly, then you can just divide that by 12 because there's 12 months in a year, and that's where the 2% comes from. So they gave you both of these in the problem, that you didn't need to have them both. You can have one or the other, and you can get the other one by either multiplying or dividing by 12. Also, she's maintaining an average monthly balance of about $1,100. What that means is she's not charging $1,100 each month. It means that on average, she's carrying that balance through month to month. So let's say in January she starts with $1,100, and then she buys something for $100, and it goes up to $1,200, and then she pays $100 off, and it goes back down to $1,100 to start in February. Something like that. She's continuing to just carry $1,100 along with her each month. That's what that means. Now, the question wants to know, how much is she spending on credit card interest per month and then per year? So if they're asking per month, then we can use the 2%. When they ask per year, we can use the 24%. And what I did was I set this up using the percent equation that we talked about in the last chapter. So as a little side note, even though I said there's no cumulative midterm or final or anything like that in this class, some of the ideas that we just got done testing on will get brought back up in a new application. So the stuff's not going to completely go away. It might change its form a little bit, though, so you are all aware. So anyway, this is like the part, the whole, and this is the percentage in decimal form. So I plugged in the percent and the 1,100 and just multiplied it together to get the part. So she's being charged about $22 per month for interest. Now that we have that, you can just multiply it by 12 to find her annual interest payment because there's 12 months in a year. So 12 times the $22 that she's being charged per month means that she's going to end up paying about $264 per year in interest. Any questions about any of that so far? What we could have also done, okay, good. What we could have also done is gone back and plugged in, instead of doing the 12 times 22, we could have plugged it in as 0.24 for the 24%, and multiplied that by 1,100, and that would have still been 264. There's two different ways to find that, the annual interest. Okay, so let's look at the next thing. In your portfolio project that is going to be coming up soon, once we're done with everything in this chapter, you are going to be required to make a budget. I have a budget template that you can use, or you can create your own. If you do not already have a budget and don't use a budget of your own, here are the most basic steps for creating a budget. You want to list all of your monthly income, so everything that you bring in. If you don't receive regular paychecks because they vary from week to week, then you want to try to find an average of what that income is per month. So what I would do is I would go back maybe 6 months prior to whatever the budget is. Go back 6 months and see what did you make per month for the last 6 months, and then average that together. So add the 6 months together and then divide it by 6 to see how much you made as an average amount. That'll give you a pretty good indication of what you bring in month to month, even if it varies. Do the same thing for all of your expenses then. So you might have fixed expenses, and then you might have expenses that vary. So you're going to do the same thing and average them if they vary. So let's say, for example, for us, my household, our electric bill is not fixed. It varies month to month. But what I do to budget for it when I put it in my budget is I go back to my bills, I look at my past statements for the last 6 months, and usually they're actually displayed on my bill that way. So I don't even have to go back, I just look at the bill. But I can get a good indication. I add up what we've spent over the last 6 months, I divide it by 6, and that gives me a good indication of what we're spending. I also know, and this is something that as you get more advanced with budgeting, you might want to include this too, but I also know that our electric bill tends to be a little bit higher in the summer because we run our AC on our electric. It's a little bit lower in the cooler months because we have gas for our heat. So electric goes up in summer, gas goes down, and vice versa. So I kind of flip-flop those in my budget when I make it. Okay, and then last but not least, when you're all done, you want to subtract your expenses from your income. That'll tell you what's called your net monthly cash flow. In plain English, it's what is left over at the end of the month after your bills are paid. On your homework, it's going to ask for your net monthly cash flow, and that's what they want you to do. We have to come up with a monthly, and it's monthly every time, a monthly income, monthly expenses, and then subtract to get that. Okay, so let's talk about how you would put something like this into a budget first, and then we'll look at the net monthly income, or the net monthly cash flow, sorry. So it says, in addition to your monthly expenses, you have the following college expenses that you pay twice a year. $3,500 for tuition, $750 in student fees, and $800 for textbooks. How should you handle these expenses in computing your monthly budget? So the issue is that some people are not sure how to deal with something when it's being charged twice a year. So since they are all being charged twice a year, one of the things that make this work a little bit faster is let's add them all up and then see what it would be if it was for 1 year. So here's what I did. I added up the $3,500, the $750, and the $800. And since we're paying them twice a year, I multiplied by 2 to see what is the grand total that I paid for 1 whole year. Then, since I need this to be monthly, I divided that by 12. So $10,100 divided by 12 means per month it's costing about $842 for all of this stuff, which is a lot. A faster way, but a little bit more confusing at first, a faster way would have been to add these all up and just divide by 6. Does anybody know why it would just be 6? If you pay something twice a year, you pay it every 6 months. So maybe you pay something in June, and then you pay it again in December. That's usually how it works. So you could just divide it by 6 because you're paying it every 6 months. Also, if you look at it, multiplying by 2 and then dividing by 12 is basically like just dividing by 6. Okay. Any questions so far before I keep going?
No.
Great. All right, so in this problem, they are now asking to find the net monthly cash flow. So they give you expenses and income for this person here. It says to assume salary and wages are after taxes, that 1 month is 4 weeks, and then 1 year is 12 months, round to the nearest dollar. So don't overthink this and try to take taxes out or Social Security or anything like that. Income here is just take home pay. So to find the net monthly cash flow, we're going to first add up all of our income, and we want this to be in monthly amounts. So our part-time job, we make $900 a month. That's already a monthly amount, so we can leave that one alone. The other two, $7,000 and $5,000, those are both per year, so those have to be converted to monthly amounts. So we're going to start with that. Once we've done that, then we can deal with the expenses and try to get those all in monthly amounts. So here's what I broke it down to. I took the $7,000 and I divided it by 12 because there's 12 months in a year, and this was given as a yearly amount, just like the next one will be too. So figure out how many things are in the month that you're being asked for. In this case, it'd be 12 months in a year or 4 weeks in a month, and so on. So I divided each of these by 12 to make them monthly amounts, then added this all up. So the total monthly income I got was $1,900. And then I'm going to put that aside. Then I'm going to do the same thing for my monthly expenses. So the $580 was already given as a monthly amount. The groceries, let me go back here for 1 second. The groceries were given as $70 per week. Since they say to assume that there's 4 weeks in a month, we need to change this to monthly amount by multiplying it by 4. So I did 70 times 4. That gave me the amount that they spend on groceries per month. Next, I took the $3,500 and divided it by 6 based on what I said before. If you're paying it twice a year, you're paying it every 6 months. So just divide it by 6, and that'll give you a monthly amount. And the last one was already a monthly amount, so I didn't have to touch that one. Now that they're all monthly expenses, I can add these up. And I got a total of about $1,613.33. And then in last step, I'm going to subtract the income minus the expenses to see how much is left over after everything's been paid. So $1,900 for my income minus $1,613.33 for my expenses gives me a net monthly cash flow of $286.67. So this is what's left over that can now be put towards something. We can put it in savings. We can go buy some clothes, whatever it is you want to do. This is leftover money at the end of the month. If this were negative, that would be really bad. Negative net monthly cash flows means you are spending more than you are making, and that's what puts people in debt. So you want to always make sure your net monthly cash flow is positive. That means you have money left over, a little bit of extra cash in your pocket to start the next month. Okay, any questions about that before I keep going? Okay, I'm going to assume you guys are good, and I'm going to keep going. So next topic is how you calculate a spending ratio. Now these ones are normally done as annual costs. Net monthly cash flow is monthly. Spending ratios are yearly, annual costs. So we're going to do the opposite now and change everything to yearly amounts. So what you want to do is write a ratio for your first expense to the second expense, put it in fraction form, and then convert it to a percent. So here is an example. Elena spends $4 per day on a coffee and $300 per month on food, and they want a spending ratio for the first thing to the second thing. So first, let's talk about $4 per day. We need this as a yearly amount. So if it's per day, we need to change this by multiplying it by 365 because there's 365 days in a year. So I started with that. 4 times 365 gave me $14.60. That's how much she spends a year on coffee. Then I'm going to change the $300 per month to a yearly amount by multiplying this one by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So $3,600 on groceries for the year, $1,460 on coffee. To me, that's crazy. She's spending almost half as much just on coffee as she does for everything else that she eats.
Yes, because I spend $7 at Starbucks every single day.
Seriously,
Sunday.
that was gonna be my next point. I was gonna say $4 isn't even like a lot. Like most people spend more than that on coffee. So anyway, here's what we're gonna do next to put it in a ratio form. It's the first expense to the second. So it's easiest to just go right to fraction form. You don't have to bother to put it in with a colon. Just put it in ratio form as a fraction. Then to get it as a percent, we're going to divide numerator divided by denominator and then multiply it by 100 to change it to percent form. So as a spending ratio, this means that she spends about 41% of the cost on the coffee as she does to the rest of the food. Okay. All right. Any questions about the spending ratios?
No.
Okay, good. All right, so here is the last thing. This one's a lot of steps. So I tried to break this up into a table on the next page. So I'm going to try to explain this as best I can. So just stay with me. If this is not something that you've ever done before, and you're in the market to buy a new car in the future, you should definitely try to cost compare stuff like this. It's very helpful and can save you a lot of money. So here it says you currently drive 360 miles per week in a car that gets 20 miles per gallon of fuel. That's your fuel efficiency, your gas mileage. You're considering buying a new fuel efficient car for $12,000 after you trade in your current car, and that one gets 60 miles per gallon. Insurance premiums for the new and the old car are $900 and $600 per year, respectively. If you're not sure what that means, respectively means that whatever this first price is goes with the first thing here. So the new is $900, the old is $600. And then you anticipate spending $1,400 per year on repairs for the old car, and you'll have no repairs on the new car. Hopefully, it'll be under warranty, I'm guessing. Assume gas costs $3.50 per gallon. Over a 5-year period, will be less expensive to keep your old car or buy the new car, and by how much. So here's a little side note. When you're comparing something like this, you need to give it some time. So that's why we're going to compare it over a 5-year period. Because every single time you buy a new car, the first year or two, that new car is going to cost more, no matter what. You're driving an old car, which is probably paid off, versus buying a new car. New car is going to cost you more money no matter what. However, if you give it some time, this fuel efficiency difference over time will start to pay for itself by saving you money in gas. But you have to give it time for that to happen. So again, that's why we're going to do it over a 5-year period. So let's take a look and see how is it going to be different for each different category. So I broke it down based on the old car and the new car into the purchase price, the insurance, repair cost, gas is a big one, and then we'll be able to see what the total is for each of these, the total to own it over 5 years, and then we'll be able to calculate the savings over that time period. So let's go with the purchase price first. Obviously, it's no purchase price for the old car because you already own it. It'll cost us $1,200 to buy this new car off the bat. That's a one-time expense, so you don't have to do anything else, just list it. Now for the insurance, it's going to cost $600 for the old car, but that is going to be for 5 years, so $600 per year for the 5 years that we're going to compare this for. So insurance over 5 years will cost us $3,000 for the old, and then they did the same thing for the new, or $4,500 for the new. And that's typically the case. New cars cost more to insure because they're more expensive. Now for repairs, with the old car, we're assuming a $1,400 expense each year for 5 years. So to repair your old car, it's going to cost you $7,000. The new car won't have any repairs because it's under warranty. Then the gas, and this is the big one. So now let's talk about how I set this up. So first I figured out how many miles I would have to drive per year. So I'm going to scoot all the way back up here. We currently drive 360 miles per week in a car that gets 20 miles per gallon. So it's 360 miles times 52 to figure out how many miles you drive per year. I'm sorry. There's 52 weeks in a year, so 360 times 52. That's where the 18,720 miles per year came from. Next, I set this up with my canceling method to figure out, well, if I drive this far per year and I get 20 miles per gallon for my fuel efficiency here, that means, and I set this up so that my miles will cancel out, that means I'm going to have to buy 936 gallons of gas each year. So this canceled, and then I was left with gallons per year. Next, I took that amount and I multiplied it by the price that it would cost me per gallon of gas. So if I need to buy 936 gallons of gas and it costs $3.50 for 1 gallon, and I'm doing that for 5 years, then the total cost for gas will be $16,380. That's a ton of money. And that's because 20 miles per gallon is not very good fuel efficiency. Okay, now let's look what it would be with the new car, which is very good on gas. It's going to still be the same amount of mileage that you're driving. You're still driving 360 miles per week, which is that's a pretty long commute too, by the way. But now, with the 60 miles per gallon of fuel efficiency, that means we only have to purchase 312 gallons of gas. It's a lot less gas to buy. Then I multiplied that by the price, and then I did it for 5 years. And I only need to spend about $5,460 in gas then. So fuel efficient cars start to pay for themselves because you don't have to buy as much gas. And when gas is high, that's a big deal. Gas is relatively low right now, but it's not going to stay that way forever. So now I've got all of my different expenses all broken down. And then I'm going to add it all up and see what's the total to own the car for 5 years for the for the old car, and what will it cost me to own the new car over 5 years. So my total for my old car was the $3,000, the $7,000, plus the $16,380. That gave me this total. For the new car, I added up the $12,000, the $4,500 for insurance, and the $5,460 for the gas, and that gave me a cost of $21,960. So, like I said before, over 5 years, the gas starts to pay for the purchase price of this car. So over 5 years, it costs less to own the new car than it does to keep that old car. It would be a savings of over $4,000 then. Okay, that's it. That's the end of the question. Do you guys have questions for me?
No.
No.
Okay. I think you do have one of these type on your homework where you have to figure out the cost to own per 2 different options of something. And I would highly recommend you break it down just the way that I did into the different categories of expenses to kind of sort it all out, because there's a lot of information that's given to you in the problem. All right, if you guys don't have anything for me, then we're done. You just have one. You have homework 3 is this one section that's due next week if you're all caught up. If you're not caught up, try to get back in and get everything else in before we continue on for chapter 4, because then there's going to be a lot more coming, including we're going to start talking about your portfolio project soon.
All right.
Okay, so if you guys are good, you can head off. I'll see you next week.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.